Amesikia? All right, Yolanda, very good evening to you. Special thanks for choosing us tonight to inform you and bring you up to speed with the latest stories making headlines in the country and even beyond. My name is Theo Macharia, and on the Sign Language Interpretation Desk tonight is Boniface Morethi. And together, let's update you with the latest. And the United Democratic Alliance, that is the UDA party, Secretary General Hassan Omar has slammed Orange Democratic Movement Party Secretary General Edwin Sifuna over his stance on the 10-point agenda. Omar says that Sifuna was opposed to the Memorandum of Understanding from the beginning. Therefore, Sifuna has no authority to dictate anything about its implementation. Omar also defended the 60-day extension of the Dr. Agnes Zani-led committee, arguing that it was constituted months after the agreement was signed, hence 1 year is yet to lapse.
A supremacy battle is brewing between UDA Party Secretary General Hassan Omar and embattled ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna. While addressing the media today during a press briefing on UDA repeat grassroots elections scheduled for tomorrow, Omar launched a scathing attack on Sifuna, saying that Sifuna has no moral authority to talk about the 10-point agenda since he has demonstrated zero goodwill about its implementation from the word go.
He didn't commit himself to even ensuring that that committee was working, even when the late Raila Odinga was alive. The few times we met to discuss the progress of that committee, even when the late Raila Odinga was alive, Sifuna was not present. So you can then not cast aspersion of a process that you did not know how it was conceptualized, how it was actualized, and where it is headed, and where the objectives are.
The Iyala Member of Parliament also differed with Sifuna's stance that the lifetime of the Committee on Implementation of the 10-point agenda, led by Dr. Agnes Zani, has expired, arguing that the committee was constituted way after the agreement was signed.
How many times have we extended the life of committees, working groups, commissions, hearings, because there is some more assignment to be finalized? And that committee was formed way after the MOU was signed. The MOU was signed on 7th of March 2025. The committee was set up sometime in August of 2025.
He went on to state that while he is focused on strategizing ahead of the 2027 general election, Sifuna is busy seeking personal popularity in media stations.
Some of the secretary generals are constantly in the media. They wake up in the morning and come to your newsrooms. And then you amplify those voices, which is fair enough. So that's the independence of this country that we have in terms of democracy. But other secretary generals come to the office and put up a political structure. That's what wins an election.
As the broad-based faction prepares to set up a joint technical committee to lay the ground for coalition talks, the battle royale between Sifuna and Omar is one to keep an eye on. Jacob Ochiro, Hope TV, Nairobi.
All right, and let's stay with the United Democratic Alliance Party. Now, UDA Party National Chair Cecily Mbarire has confirmed that preparations are complete for the phase 2 of grassroots elections slated for tomorrow, that is Saturday, the 14th of March. Mbarire stated that all the necessary arrangements have been made in terms of security and logistical materials needed for the exercise, which will be done digitally.
Ningetaka kuchukua hii nafasi kama chairperson wa chama ya UDA Kenya mzima kuwajulisha Wakenya kwamba kesho tunaanzisha uchaguzi wa UDA officials katika kila polling center, ambapo tutakuwa tunachagua viongozi 20 wakirepresent different sectors, farmers, religious sector, traders, vijana, kina mama, kila mmoja ya sekta yote ya community watakuwa wanachaguliwa kesho. Viongozi 20 katika kila polling center. Ningetaka kuuliza watu kutoka constituent polling stations, counties zote za Mount Kenya region isipokuwa Nakuru, na polling stations zote za Rift Valley wakuwe tayari kujitokelezea kesho katika uchaguzi.
And months after President William Ruto pledged to implement austerity measures to curb government spending, a new audit report has revealed that State House and the offices of the President and his deputies spent a whopping 298.58 million shillings on fuel for their vehicles within just the first 6 months of the 2025-2026 financial year. As Vincent Kerosi now reports, the Office of the Controller of Budgets report now raises eyebrows, revealing that State House alone consumed 202.96 million shillings on fuel, the second highest expenditure among government entities, coming only after the National Police Service, which spent 377.65 million shillings.
In a report that raises serious questions regarding the commitment of the Kenya Kwanza administration on its own austerity measures, the Controller of Budget has now revealed that since President Ruto assumed office in September 2022, State House has utilized 1.09 billion Kenya shillings on fuel alone.
That's great.
According to Margaret Nyakango's office, State House spent a whopping 202.96 million Kenya shillings, the Office of the President 26.8 million Kenya shillings, while Deputy President Kithure Kindiki's office spent a staggering 68.77 million in the first half of financial year 2025-2026 just for fuel. In recent times, the president has escalated his local travels that have included empowerment programs, especially the Nyota Fund launches, while his deputy, Professor Kindiki, has also increased his own ground commitments, moving around with huge entourages to attend empowerment and political rallies as his ability to defend the Kenya Kwanza regime is put to task. To put this into perspective, the vehicles consumed an average of 1.7 million liters of fuel, covering approximately 14 million kilometers during that period. If the trend continues, these figures could skyrocket to surpass the previous financial years. For instance, State House spent 481.39 million Kenya shillings on fuel in the 2024-2025 financial year, a notable increase from 407.92 million Kenya shillings recorded in the 2023-2024 financial year. These revelations come at a time when State House is set to spend 17 billion Kenya shillings by the end of the current financial year, nearly double the 8.5 billion Kenya shillings initially allocated at the beginning of the financial year. Furthermore, State House has requested 20 billion Kenya shillings for the next financial year starting July 1st, citing the addition of 4 new state lodges as a key factor driving the anticipated rise in expenditure. Vincent Kerosi, Hope TV, Nairobi.
Now let's take a look at some matters education, where education stakeholders have raised concern over the declining performance of students in mathematics in national examinations. The concern follows last year's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education results, where data from the Ministry of Education shows that more than half of the candidates scored a D+ or below in the subject. Tess Jenga tells us more.
Mizizi Elimu Africa has revealed that about 50,000 candidates who sat the national examinations last year scored an E in mathematics. Mizizi CEO John Mugo says the problem begins in the foundation classes, including pre-primary and lower primary levels, where gaps in teacher preparedness and teaching methods affect the early development of numeracy skills.
Impactful and most important that is sustainable.
Speaking at the University of Embu during this year's International Day of Mathematics celebrations, Mugo noted that learners who miss a strong mathematics foundation often struggle with the subject throughout their academic journey.
Tukikosa msingi thabiti, unakuta kwamba wanafunzi sasa wanatatizika. Wakifika darasa la 5, waletewe algebra, hawawezi. Kwa hivyo kama tungewekelea sana wale walimu ambao wanafanya kazi katika PP1, PP2 na wale ambao wako grade 1, 2 na 3 waweze kuona ni mbinu gani ambazo wanaweza kutumia kubadilisha vile ambavyo wanafunza.
We are also going to be having a lot of students, PhD student, master student that will be supported through this project. We will also have a lot of community engagement. So working with the schools and the things like those. So it's going to be something that is very, very positive and will enhance what we do as a university.
Meanwhile, research by the NGO Usawa Agenda shows that only a third of grade 4 learners can successfully handle grade 3 mathematics tasks. Harry Africa Research in Mathematics Education Interim Chair, Dr. Simon Karuku, says the organization plans to work closely with the Ministry of Education to strengthen the capacity of mathematics teachers.
We now want to focus on the learner, and we want to use approaches that are friendly to the learner. So we want to confirm indeed what would it take for the children to be able to learn maths. One of the strategies would be to working with the teachers, improve their capacity through teacher professional development, and also confirming that what we are applying is relevant to those learners, so it will be context specific.
He added that for many years, teaching methods have been teacher-centered, and there is now a need to shift focus to approaches that actively engage learners. Commission for University Education CEO Professor Mike Kuria also called for reforms in teaching methods, saying education should be made more engaging for students.
If this research goes on well, it means that students will find learning mathematics or learning any other language interesting. And if they find it interesting, then they can excel in those particular areas. Then teachers are going to stop focusing on themselves. You stop focusing on what you do in class, and you stop focusing on what students are able to do with the information that you give them.
Kuria emphasized the need to focus more on students' ability to demonstrate competencies rather than memorizing content for examinations. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Tess Njenga.
An Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, has issued a stern warning that police will crack down on hired goons and criminal gangs being used to settle by politicians, to settle political scores ahead of the 2027 general elections. Speaking at the Kenya School of Government during a meeting with senior officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Kanja said security agencies will act decisively to dismantle gangs linked to political violence. Kanja further reiterated the National Police Service is committed to ensuring the 2027 elections are conducted in peaceful and secure environments, warning that anyone involved in organized violence will face the full force of the law.
And these are some of the things that we have actually been discussing. Goons, as I have said elsewhere, these are criminals. And our business is dealing with criminals. So these are some of the strategies that we are discussing when we are meeting with the senior leaderships to see to it that goons and other criminal gangs are done away with. Yeah? We don't have space for these criminals. And a lot is actually, I think we're going to see what we are going to do going forward. Yes. Our next year general election is not far away from where we are. It's around 15 months away. And the National Police Service, you are also aware that it plays a critical role in ensuring that we have the right environment to allow the people of Kenya exercise their democratic rights in electing their leaders. So we must, as a service, must also continue to prepare ourselves. As the preparations start at the strategic level and then move down. Last week, you can remember that I had again a strategic meeting with the regional commanders and the formation commanders at the the Police Leadership Academy in Goma. We were discussing the same issues. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to meet with the county police commanders, drawn from all our 7 counties, again discussing the same issues.
Are we able to really capacitate our officers in the area of investigations, particularly the AML CFT investigations? So what we are doing at the moment is capacity building of our investigators on matters of AML CFT. And I must appreciate the fact that the government, Treasury, has allocated sufficient resources for these exercises, so that all the National Police Service officers, from the level of the station commanders up to the top leadership, are trained on matters of financial investigations, so that at the end of the day, and as a country, we are able to prosecute money laundering as a stand-alone offense.
And 2 years after the controversial closure of War Memorial Hospital, Nakuru County government is yet to open the facility, despite being served with 10 court orders. Nakuru Senator Tabitha Karanja Keroche is now seeking the President and Senate's intervention to have the facility that served hundreds of patients reopened. The facility that at its peak was popular with dialysis patients was closed down by the county government, with goons leaving a trail of destruction and permanently paralyzing operations. Speaking in Naivasha, the senator lashed out at the county governor, Susan Kihika, for the continued ignorance of court orders, as workers and patients continued to suffer under a health sector which Senator Karanja says is on its knees due to lack of medical supplies, despite the county getting over 100 billion shillings in the last 4 years. Just a few days ago, Governor Kihika took Senator Karanja to court for allegedly defaming her over the construction of a multi-million hotel near State House in Nakuru.
Nakuru residents accusing Her Excellency Susan Kihika and her family of using her position to construct her multi-billion hotel on public land that is owned by a railway corporation and is built next to our War Memorial Hospital, that she forcibly closed 3 years ago. That was back in 2023. She forcibly closed and forcibly transferred patients, where we saw some patients dying because of that forceful transfer. My big question, and also of Nakuru people, and also of Kenya, they're asking how Her Excellency Susan Kihika has taken me to the same courts that she has defied 10 court orders to reopen the War Memorial Hospital, which she forcibly closed 3 years ago, and forcibly transferred the patients, where some died, and yet she has not reopened the hospital even with 10 court orders. That hospital was the main hospital for the Nakuru people. Today, if people want to go to a hospital in the status of Nairobi Hospital Aga Khan, they have to all the way to travel to Nairobi.
From Nakuru now, let's take a look at matters flooding. With Public Health and Professional Standards Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni has warned of a possible rise in waterborne diseases as heavy rains continue to pound several parts of the country, urging Kenyans to clear blocked drainage systems and bushes around their homes to prevent flooding and protect public health. In the same tune as Samia Dika reports, a section of clerics are now blaming corruption and illegal land grabbing for the deadly floods being witnessed across Kenya.
As heavy rains continue pounding across the country, the government has raised concerns over poor sanitation and stagnant water that increase the risk of outbreaks of diseases such as cholera and typhoid. Speaking in Kirinyaga, Public Health and Professional Standards Principal Secretary Mary Modoni has urged Kenyans to practice environmental hygiene to avert such cases.
Kama wewe unaona mambo kama ya malaria, mambo ya kolera, mambo ya bilharzia itakupata. Ile maji ikifika pale kwako kwa mlango, make sure umeiteremsha. Umeikatia mtaro, imeenda. Tusikuje tukapatwa na magonjwa yenye tunaweza tukapuuza pale kwa manyumbani metu. Sababu magonjwa mengi inatupata na tunaweza tukayazuia.
Parents have also been urged to closely supervise their children, especially on their way to and from school during this rainy season, noting that floods and landslides pose serious risks to lives and property.
Watoto wetu wakienda shule, you make sure they are accompanied by a grown-up person or a big person who can be able, anaweza akawavukisha mto, anaweza akawavukisha barabara, ndio wasipatwe na hizi accidents mingi.
This comes as a section of religious leaders in the country, led by Glory Outreach Assembly Archbishop David Thagana, blame corruption and illegal land grabbing for the deadly floods being witnessed across the country, further calling on the government to repossess riparian land.
Let us not tolerate corruption at any level. Anybody who grabs public facilities, places for children, for sports, waterways, needs to be dealt with very, very strongly. And we would want to ask the bodies and the commissions that are concerned with corruption to make sure that they deal with these matters, not just talk about it, but deal with it, even if it means recovering the public property.
The remarks comes as the government says 49 people have lost their lives from flooding across the country. For Newswatch, I'm Sami Adika.
And Kisii County has joined 15 other counties in the country in rolling out lenacapavir, which is a long-acting injectable drug designed to prevent new HIV infections among people at high risk. The launch held at Getembe Dispensary marks a significant step in strengthening HIV prevention efforts in the county, where, according to 2025 data, HIV prevalence currently stands at 2.9%.
Kisii County has officially introduced lenacapavir, a long-acting injectable drug expected to boost HIV prevention efforts among vulnerable populations. The rollout event at Getembe Dispensary brought together county health officials and healthcare workers as the county joined other regions in implementing the new prevention approach. Speaking during the launch, the County Director of Medical Services, Dr. Matiko Giambe, said the county has received an initial supply of nearly 500 doses to the injectable drug, with more expected in the coming months.
Today marks a significant day for this county, and specifically the Health Department of Health, the County Department of Health, to have joined the rest of the 15 counties in the country to launch the use of lenacapavir, which is a drug that is taken to prevent acquisition of new infections to our key populations. We've received enough doses for our county, close to 500 for starters, and we expect that we'll be receiving more doses.
However, Dr. Giambe cautioned residents against misinterpreting the new prevention option as a license for irresponsible behavior, emphasizing that while the injection helps preventing new HIV infections, it does not protect against other sexually transmitted infections.
I wish to remind our populace that there are other infections that could be acquired that are not protected by lenacapavir, and therefore the other preventive measures, the barrier methods, and other PrEP measures need to continue. To our young population in the reproductive age group, it's also important to know that lenacapavir is only for prevention of new acquisitions of HIV infection and do not prevent anyone from conceiving, and therefore necessary preventative measures.
According to the county health data, Kisii recorded 359 new HIV infections last year, while 310 people died from HIV-related complications. Women remain slightly more affected than men, underscoring the need for targeted prevention strategies. Healthcare officials say the introduction of lenacapavir will work alongside other interventions including HIV testing, counseling, and treatment programs already available in health facilities across the county. Reporting for Hope TV, my name is Glory Githinji.
All right, welcome to the world of business, and we begin with some matters energy, where Energy and Petroleum Cabinet Secretary Theo Macharia has assured Kenyans that fuel prices will not increase as a result of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Speaking in Kipkelion East, Macharia said the government has put in place measures to shield consumers from possible shocks in the global oil market. Wandai's announcement comes at a crucial moment when the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, that is EPRA, is expected to announce new fuel prices tonight, which will guide the market for the next month.
Tumekuwa na vita kali sana kule Middle East. The war between America and Israel against Iran. Hiyo vita imeleta hofu kubwa sana dunia nzima. My work is to give you the assurance on behalf of the national government, the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, working closely with our international oil companies, which are our suppliers of petroleum products. Under the government arrangement, we have put in place adequate mechanisms tumeweka mikakati kabambe to ensure that mafuta itakuwepo katika nchi bila wasiwasi. Hakutakuwa na upungufu wala ukosefu wa mafuta katika nchi ya Kenya licha ya vita ile ya Middle East kuendelea, kwa sababu tuko na appropriate mechanisms, tuko na very robust framework agreements between the government of Kenya and the international oil companies which are serving us under the G2G arrangement. Kwa hivyo wananchi wa Kenya wasiwe na hofu au wasiwasi.
And Kenya currently consumes roughly around 600,000 metric tons of edible oils each year, yet more than 90 to 95% of that demand comes from imports, a costly reliance that the government says must change through an initiative to accelerate sunflower, soybean and other oil crop production by the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Speaking during the opening of the Kilimo Biashara Expo 2026 at the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization KALRO Seeds headquarters in Thika, Agriculture CS Mutahi Kagwe said scaling up production of these crops can cut the country's heavy reliance on imported edible oils, build local agro-processing and raise farmer incomes. In the recent years, Kenya has spent over 145 billion shillings on imported edible oils, underlining the size of the opportunity for local farmers and agri-business investors.
We spend as a nation about 500 billion shillings. I didn't say billion, I said trillion. 500 billion shillings every year importing food, soy, wheat, rice, edible oils, all these things. And so you can imagine what that does to our balance of payments. You can imagine what it does to our balance of trade. And you can imagine what does that to our exchange rates. So the idea is import substitution is first to create security for yourselves. Because in the changing circumstances in the world, for example, if there is a war and you import wheat in a war-infested area, then we will not have wheat. So we have to grow these crops ourselves. So it's not just a question of food stability, it is food sustainability, but it's also food independence.
So what we are trying to do in Carro is to promote the use of all the adoption of edible oils. And one of the things that we are promoting and which we'll be launching today is the sunflower and also the soya bean.
All right, welcome. And now it's time for some sporting action, and we begin with the infamous WRC Safari Rally, where Toyota Gazoo Racing's Oliver Solberg held a 29-second lead of Safari Rally Kenya on Friday morning ahead of his other teammates, that is Elfin Evans, Sebastian Ogier and Takamoto Katsuta, who are placed in second, third and fourth positions respectively. Now, fifth-placed Sami Pajari produced the standout pace of the morning. Friday's drill was witnessed by a dominant Toyota charge at the top of the leaderboard. The first super special stage at Camp Moran was cancelled due to impassable roads. Crews instead began the loop in the 18.95 kilometers Loldia stage, where conditions remained unpredictable. Drivers faced 5 more stages in the afternoon and evening loop as teams tackled the challenging conditions of the third leg of the World Rally Championship in Naivasha.
Okay, we managed to reduce a bit the gap with the front, so that's the most important. Unfortunately, a small puncture in the last stage cost a bit of time, but generally it's nice that the conditions were a bit more consistent this morning and we can enjoy more the driving.
Generally okay loop, just stalled the engine once and went straight, lost a bit of time there, but generally able to defend our position, getting through the loop, trying to preserve the car somehow on those rough conditions, because the weekend is still long and there's more work for us to come this afternoon, and already looking also forward for the rest of the rally. It's going to be tough.
This morning is much better. This morning the performance is where we expect to be. Competitive against the Toyotas on the stages where we have a good clean run, and we're looking forward to this afternoon being significantly easier as we go forward. Maybe the rain will come, maybe that will make it more difficult, but we see how this afternoon goes.
And from WRC now to some matters FIFA. FIFA has approved new rules aimed at making football matches easier and to reduce time wasting. The changes will begin at the 2026 FIFA World Cup set for June 11th to July 19th, being hosted by Canada, Mexico and the USA. Under the new rules, players being substituted must leave the pitch within 10 seconds or their replacement will wait 1 minute before entering. Teams will also have 5 seconds to take throw-ins and goal kicks or lose ball possession. Players receiving treatment will leave the field and return after 1 minute, while the VAR system will also be allowed to review second yellow cards and corner kick decisions. The changes are meant to keep the game moving and improve fairness on the pitch. All right, and I meant the changes are meant to make the games faster and reduce time wasting and not easier. And we've come to the end of tonight's edition of Hope TV's Newswatch. Thank you for choosing us to inform you tonight with the latest as far as the news is concerned. My name is Theo Macharia. On the sign language interpretation desk was Boniface Mureithi. Right about now, I hand you over to DJ Kavid for Friday Frenzy. Enjoy your weekend, and remember, there is nothing that is too hard for the Lord. Good night. God bless.